Assalamualaikum and hi everyone, I'm Dr. Wan. In this video, I will talk about the contents, what to include in your presentation slide. In this semester, you have to submit a recorded video. So you need to remember, no matter how good is your audio, no matter how marvelous is your editing or post-processing, the content is still the king. I will talk about three things. First is about why content matter. Second is about the content itself, what to include in your presentation slide. And lastly, third is about the rubric. Let's get started. Okay, first is about why content matters. Content matters is because it relates to the very reason you do the presentation itself. Because you want to share what you do, what you found with the audience, with the examiner. Your number one mission as a speaker, whether you do live or recorded presentation, is to bring what you know, something that really matters deeply to you, which is your FYP project, into the mind of your examiner. This might be obvious because you know very well about your research. You are familiar with that. You live, you eat, you sleep with it. In other words, you have a passion for it. If not, you just like a robot following your supervisor instruction just for the sake of the grade. When you do a presentation, you want to share that passion with your audience, with your examiner. If you and your examiner have the same frequency of understanding, the rest will be easy. You are happy, examiner also happy, win-win situation. So you have this passion, and when you do presentation, recorded or live, you mold this passion into what we call idea. So this idea is a gift to your examiner. Have you ever heard about the 7-38-55 rule? Where people say that to communicate effectively, most of your communication must be non-verbal. The body language 55% and voice tone is 38%, and only 7% is for your content. It is a miss actually, because the author for a book where this rule is extracted from, Albert Mehrabian, the name of the author, say that this is not his intention, because his research primarily is about how communication is communicated. For example, if people ask you, how are you today? You can answer, I'm fine. Or you can answer, I'm fine. So that you can see you use the same word but convey a different emotion. So that's basically the study is all about. 7-38-55. In that case, yes, the word doesn't count much. It's not about confidence. It's not about the stage presence. If you have the content, if you are patient, if you are truly patient about what you want to say, then the rest will come. So the key thing here is having something to say, something that is worthy. When you prepare your presentation slide, you must make sure for each slide, you can answer the question by the examiner if they ask you, what is your point? Beautiful slides, charismatic presence, or in case of recorded video, maybe the editing skill are all very well. But if there is no real takeaway, all you've done is at best to entertain. The number one reason for this tragedy is because the speaker, or in this case the student, doesn't have proper plan for the talk. The talk may have been planned bullet point by bullet point or sentence by sentence, but there are no overall arc, meaning that there are no real story, the connected story, the connectiveness is not there. When you present your project, it's basically you present a story. Because every project presentation is a story. You start with the objective, and then you have the method, and then you have the discussion, result and discussion, and so on. So you need to connect all of this together. Sometimes when students do a lot of work in the lab, they want to show that hardworkingness by putting all their result during the presentation in the slide, thinking that by doing that, it will impress us. No, we are not impressed by that. We are impressed when we can see a story behind your project, the connectiveness between methodology and the result and so on. So you need to prepare well what content, which result should I put during my slide presentation. But of course, if you don't do anything, any experimentation during your FYP, then of course there are no result to show. So the takeaway here is that you don't need to put everything. You just need to put what matters. Having a content alone is not enough. You need to ensure that all your content can be delivered in time. Maximum time for FYP presentation is less than 10 minutes. So that's a challenge. As you can see from the saying in the slide, to prepare a shorter speech takes more time, takes more preparation than to prepare a longer speech. This is especially true if you do a live presentation. But for recorded presentation, I think that's not really a problem because you can always edit. So let's conclude this first part. The second part is about the content. What should I put in my presentation slide? In general, to answer that is depend on your mode of presentation. If you are FYP1 and doing a proposal presentation, you need to tell us what you want to do. If you are going for final presentation, you need to convince us that you are ready to do what you want to do. Likewise, if you are FYP2, if you are doing a progress presentation, you need to tell us what you have done. The focus is on the result, and for FYP2 final presentation, we want to see the connectiveness of all the story from the beginning until the end. So simply, that's what we want. As for the specific what you have to include in your presentation slides, let's imagine this two box represent your FYP1 and FYP2, and this arrow represent your entire journey during your FYP. At the beginning of the semester, your supervisor or SV will give you a title. From this title, you are asked to make a survey. And what is this survey? First is about your problem statement. What problem your title tries to solve? Once you know that, your supervisor will ask you how you can tackle that problem. That is your objective. Once you got your objective sorted, meaning that you know what you're going to do in order to solve that problem in the problem statement, you can position now your research whether it is significant or not. Normally, it is significant because you're solving something. But in order to justify that further, you need to do further literature review. You need to see and compare what people have done related to what you want to do. And because FYP means you need to do some project, need to do something that is different than what others have done, so you need to come up with the method, how you are going to do what you are planning to do. Once you got all of this from problem statement until the method, at least now you have some idea what is your result will looks like. I mean your hypothesis. So in general, your problem statement, your objective, and your research significance will tell us, the examiner, what are you going to do, and your expected result will let us know what is your prediction, and the literature review that you did will act as a bridge to connect the first part, what you are going to do, and the second part, how you are going to do and what is your prediction. Because of this digging, most of your FYP1 will be focused on the literature review, but when you do a presentation, you are not going to tell us everything about literature review. Remember, your proposal presentation is not about literature review presentation. You telling us what you want to do, how you want to do, and your prediction. Yes, you can put some part of literature review, but not everything. That is in your report. For FYP1, this is what we expect to find in your presentation slide. Your problem statement, your objective, your research significance, your method, and your expected result. Yes, you can put some literature review, but not much of it. Normally, for proposal presentation, our focus is mainly on the objective and the method. The method itself will tell us indirectly whether you do a good literature review or not. For proposal presentation, the format normally 5-minute presentation and 2-minute Q&A. If you do a recorded presentation, the maximum duration for that will be 5 minutes. However, to confirm, you really need to ask your coordinator because every semester will be different. Once you're done with proposal presentation, you can start with your project. Some of you might go to the lab, but during this pandemic situation, for FYP1, you are not allowed to be in the lab. So what you can do is you can do a further digging, further polish your literature review. Some of you might already done something in the lab before the pandemic start. In that case, you can take the result from what you have done and put it in your slide for your final presentation. Final presentation for FYP1 is basically an extension of the proposal that you have done before. We want to see what have you add, or is there any modification in the method. If you have some preliminary result, then put in the slide also. If not, you need to put your expected result, your hypothesis, what you expect to find. So as you can see, in general for FYP1, what we want to see from your presentation slide, whether it's proposal or final, is that we want to see whether you know what you are going to do and how you are planning to do it. The time for final presentation for FYP1 typically is 8 minutes, followed by 7-minute question and answer. After you're done with your final presentation, you have to submit your FYP1 report. So this concludes your entire FYP1. So as the time goes, you will be in the semester 2 where you do your FYP2. So at this point, we already expect you to be in the lab doing the experiment, or in case you are doing the simulation, you start doing the simulation. When you are doing FYP2, basically you are in the final year of your semester in this university. Because you have to perform your experiment, some of you need to access the lab, so we allow you to come back to the university to perform this. Once you do your experiment, of course you will get your result, whether it's good result or bad result. For example, if your result turn out not to be what you expect, then you need to discuss why you get that result. If your result turn out to be well and align with what you expect, you also need to discuss that result. We expect to find this result and discussion in your FYP2 progress presentation. So the focus here not anymore on your objective, your research significance, or your problem statement. You can put that, but our focus is more toward your result. It is your progress. We want to see what is your progress. And typically the format is 5-minute presentation followed by 2-minute question and answer. Again, for this time limit, you have to confirm with your FYP coordinator. After you're done with the progress presentation, you usually receive a feedback from the examiner. Your examiner might suggest you to add something or to remove something from your research project. After you receive this feedback, you have to meet your supervisor and try to discuss how you can cater this. Once your supervisor gives you his or her comment based on the reviewer or the examiner feedback, you will have to continue your experiment in the lab. Maybe you have to add some experiment, or maybe you need to cut some experiment depending on the time limit that you have before the end of the semester. Due to that, you will have additional result, and also because of the result, you have to discuss that result again. Finally, you will face a final presentation. During this presentation, you need to include everything from the start until the end. Even though we focus more on the result and discussion at this moment, bear in mind that your examiner at this point might be different than your examiner during your final presentation FYP1 or during your progress presentation FYP2. So you need to mold your presentation in such a way it's a short, but at the same time is sufficient for a newcomer or new examiner to evaluate you. That itself is a challenge. As for the duration, the time limit is 8-minute presentation and 7-minute question and answer. So you can see here for proposal presentation here, you need to include all this part. For final presentation for FYP1, you need to include, if you have working in the lab, you have to include the preliminary result together with this part. If you are going to do a progress presentation, you need to include everything here. But the focus should be on the result and discussion. And if you are going to do a final presentation during the FYP2, you need to include everything from this until the additional result and discussion. The challenge here is really the time. The further you go, the more thing you need to include in your slides. For example, for final presentation, even though you have to put your introduction, objective and so on, please make sure most of the time is focused on the result and discussion. As for now, during the pandemic situation, you are asked to submit a recorded presentation. That's, I think, is a blessing. Of course, to prepare the recorded presentation will take time, but on the flip side, you have more control on your presentation. The capability to edit your video after you do the recording compared to live presentation is an advantage here. So we do expect that you can prepare a very polished and good video for this purpose. After you finish with your final presentation, it's time for you to submit your FYP2 report and an article. And this marks the end of your FYP journey. As for the content of your slide, apart from what you see now, you need to add at least 4 additional things, which is the title page, the introduction page, the conclusion page, and also your plan, which is the Gantt chart. After all, every project is different. Some do simulation, some do survey, some do experimentation, some do design. So it will be different depending which project you are. but I can give you a general idea. For title page, the minimum that you need to have is your title, your project title, your name, and your SV name. As for the introduction, you have to put a necessary background so that your examiner or your audience know what you are going to talk to. But be careful not to be carried away by this part, because most of the student will consume a lot of time here. So you have to choose only the necessary thing to put in your introduction. As long as your examiner or your audience understand, get the background, then it's fine. Next is a problem statement. You need to tell us what is the problem you want to solve. So this part will be easy. Next is the objective. For this, you need to state the slide. Objective 1 is what? Objective 2 is what? Objective 3 is what? Next is the slide about research significance. You need to tell us, convince us why you think that your research is important. As for literature review, like I said before, you don't need to put everything, every literature that you read in the slide. Just choose which one is the most important and most relevant to your project. After all, if you put a lot, no one will read it. Even though you have to submit a recorded presentation, please don't assume that the lecturer or your examiner will pause your video and try to read it. You need to craft your presentation in such a way that it mimics the live presentation. During the live presentation, examiner will never ask you to stop just to look at what you... If your examiner have to pause the video and read whatever you write, that's meaning that your presentation is not effective enough. So when you create your recorded presentation, please bear this in mind. Don't assume people will pause your presentation. Normally for the method, we expect you provide us a flowchart, and this flowchart will link with your objective. For example, let's say your flowchart is A, B, C, D. So you need to pinpoint to us from which to which cover which objective. For example, here A and B cover objective 1, C cover objective 2, and D cover the objective 3. You can also add a schematic or a picture to strengthen your flowchart. But the most important thing is that you need to relate your method with your objective. If you are going to do a proposal presentation, you need to at least put your expected result. Expected result here doesn't mean that you copy and paste other literature result and put on your slide. That's not the expected result. That is other person's result. You need at least to somehow, for example, the graph, you need to draw by yourself. I mean, just a rough graph showing that, okay, this is what I expect and this is what literature got. But not just simply take the result from the literature and paste that and say that this is what we expect. Because after all, if you just copy a literature image, literature graph, put on the expected result slide, then what is the difference between your project and the literature? Logically, when you do your project, you basically want to solve some problem. If the problem already solved, then what is the purpose of you doing your project? So that's what happens if you take a picture, image, or a graph from the literature and then you paste on your slide and claim that this is my expected result. At least you need to modify that to show that you do something new. If you have done something in the lab or if you've done your simulation, then by all means, please put your preliminary result in the slide. At least by doing that, we know you are progressing. Now come for the result and discussion part. Especially for FYP2, this is what we really want to see. For progress presentation, we want to see your progress, not anymore your expected result. For FYP2 final presentation, we want to see all your result and your discussion on that result. All the result here meaning that whatever necessary. It doesn't mean you need to put every result on the slide. Some of you might work 24/7 in the lab, sleeping in the lab, and thinking that why can't I share all my result in the slide? To answer that, please ask yourself, for what purpose you put that result? Do you put it because you want to show to the examiner that I'm doing a lot of work? For the result part, you just need to put whatever necessary, not everything that you want. Remember, there are difference between what you should put and what you want to put. If you put everything, you will get carried away. So you need to choose. If you have a lot of data, then you need to choose which data you want to present. If you have less data, that is a different story. Talking about the data, talking about the result, even the wrong result is a result. Let's say you are going for progress presentation, but you do the experiment, you did the experiment, but then unfortunately you don't get what you want. In this case, it's okay for you to present that, but you need to discuss, okay, I don't get this because of this. This is my data, but this data is not to my liking. So because of what? Because this and that and this and that. So you need to discuss whether it's good data or bad data. You need to discuss, but never made up data, because if we dig it, then we can find it. To give you an example, the slide that you're seeing now is basically the entire journey of final year project, but all of that can be put in just one slide. So you may have a lot of data and you may want to put everything. If you are clever enough, and I believe all of you are clever, you can always take all that data and merge it into one nice graph or one nice diagram, schematic or whatever. You need to find a way to convey that. As for the conclusion, you need to give us a takeaway message. What do you conclude? What do you find? Key parameter, key thing that you find from your project. What is the take-home message? What do you learn during the FYP? What do you learn from the project that you have done? Normally at the end of your presentation, we expect you to show us your Gantt chart, your plan, your overall plan. If you are FYP1, we want to know where are you now during this time and what you going to do, what is your plan. Similarly for FYP2, you need to also provide us your Gantt chart, because we want to see whether is there anything left for you to do or this is the end. So for Gantt chart preparation, you can Google it around. There are a lot of examples out there. So simply it's a timeline, what you have done and what you want to do. So that basically concludes the content part, what you should put in your slide. Either you do a live presentation or recorded presentation. Because this semester you have to submit a recorded presentation. We hope, we expect from you the best and the very polished slide presentation. Yes, to prepare a recorded presentation might be a challenge for some of you. Especially if you choose to on the camera like this, you need to make sure that you maintain the eye contact with your webcam. If you choose not to on the camera, please make sure your presentation itself is engaging. No matter how good is your style, what we want from you mostly is the content, what you have done during your project. The style, the other stuff is the bonus. Now you are in the final year of your study in this university. After this, you will go out. And for this year, 2020, we have the pandemic situation. Who knows, during job hunting, your potential employee will ask you to submit this video presentation. Because from your recorded video presentation alone, they can access you from many angles. For example, they can access your communication, they can access your project itself, how well you deal with your project, and they can also access your professionalism, how professional you prepare your slide, or record your video, the editing skill, and so on. Who knows, maybe because of this recorded FYP video, you get a job. So, do it well. And to do it well, you need to prepare. Now we come to the last part, which is the rubric. A rubric is an assessment tool that will be used by your examiner to evaluate your presentation, or in this case, your recorded presentation. I have been told by your FYP coordinator that you already got this. Whether you see it, whether you open it, that is a different matter. But at least you should know you already be given this. For FYP presentation, whether it's proposal, progress or final, the main thing that we assess you is your communication about the correctness of your data, your result, normally that we evaluate from your report. So this is an example of FYP1 proposal presentation rubric analysis tool. Most of your mark comes from your methodology. If you have a good methodology, then you're demonstrating you have good understanding about your project. So this is an example of rubric for FYP1 final presentation. As you can see, most of the mark come from your subject knowledge. Subject knowledge here means your explanation, your elaboration from the introduction until the conclusion. This is the example of FYP2 progress presentation rubric. As this is a progress presentation, most of the mark come from your progress. So if you can see from result discussion, the weightage is higher than others. And also you see for the progress, you need to link it with your objective. This is example of FYP2 final presentation rubric. In final presentation, you need to mold everything so that the most mark will come from your subject knowledge. As I mentioned before, subject knowledge means your explanation, your elaboration from beginning until the end, depending on what presentation mood that you are going to give, whether it's proposal, progress or final. You can pause this video and look at the corresponding rubric. As I mentioned before, you already be given this rubric. It's whether you see it or not, whether you open it or not. That's conclude this video, and I hope this video can help you in preparing your recorded video presentation. And again, I remind you, because you are going to submit a recorded video presentation, we expect the best from you. On that note, thank you for watching.